give you DIY. Alright. Problem I encountered with my motor. This is what it looks like when you put the pistons. What I thought I put the pistons in wrong. As you can see here, the intake valve here and the exhaust valves here. Well, that's wrong. I put them all in, but they should be like this when it sets in the motor. Intake here, exhaust here. Okay? And the reason why I put them in like this, if you can look, there's a bigger groove here. A bigger groove here. And just a smaller groove here. It's not even really got a groove on it. But there is a difference. Okay? Because if it wasn't a difference, then I could just turn it around like this and put it on. Right. The difference is the large journal groove, the bigger groove, goes down here in the crank. It goes against the journal, meaning this part. Okay? That is the grooved part of this. The non-grooved goes up against the other rod. And that's coming from number 5. So 1 and 5 meet up against each other. The reason why, at first, I thought maybe I put them in wrong, but I was for sure, I watched the videos and done everything right. I wanted to make sure. I pulled them out and went to looking at them, and I didn't realize what I was doing until I'd done the clay piston to valve clearance. I put the clay on it, opened it up, and my clay was all, it wasn't even mashed right. And I got to looking at it, because you look right here, this is a trick flow head. Okay. Intake valve, exhaust valve. See, large, small. Okay. And this is exactly how it goes on the motor, just like this, when it sets on it. Because here's your spark plug hose. Here's where your headers go, exhaust. So if I took this motor over and set it right down on it, that's how it would be. So, in turn, this intake valve and intake relief and exhaust relief for these trick flows, you got to have them or your valves will hit. So I couldn't use a stock piston or they will hit. So in other words, this and this goes right in there when it makes its stroke. Boom. Okay? So that's how it's supposed to be, like this. That's how that piston has to set. Okay? Just like this. Alright, so come over here and look at this. This is wrong. Small, large, small, large. It's got to be large, small, large, small. So you ask yourself, again, why? Well, why don't you just turn it around and put it in there like that? You can't do it because then these grooves relations will be wrong. So you know what? It's not what I done that was wrong, which I thought it was. It was the machine shop. That when I took these, you know how people say, don't try to heat them, don't do anything, you're wasting your time, take them to a professional and get them pressed in. So when I bought these pistons for my trick flows, they came separate with the rods wasn't on them, so I had to take them and professionally had them pressed on. So the mistake was at the machine shop is who you count on and respect. You know, people make mistakes, and me, being that I'm one of my first time builds, learning everything on YouTube, I didn't catch it when I put them in. So I did all this work. I put all these in, you know, and put the rings on, piston rings on it, and I didn't know. I didn't catch it. I didn't have enough, I don't want to say enough sense. I just was green about my engine build. But only reason why I caught it is when I done the clay. Because if I would have just said, you know what, I'm not going to do the piston to valve, and I'm not going to do the clay method on the here. I'm not worried about it because they sold me the right push rods and everything. I'm just going to put it together and run the motor. If I would have done that, then it wouldn't have been right. See, I would have had that mistake. So that's why they, for one thing, I always do the clay method to make sure, you know, they tell you to do the clay method, piston to valve clearance, so when it takes a 3D impression, it presses down on the valves and the clay and it mashes it. You take it apart and you look at it and make sure if it's mashed all the way down into it, then you know it's going to hit the valve. It's going to hit the top of the piston. So they tell you to take a 3D cut and measure the thickness, you know, and if your clay is like a piece of cheese, well, you know it ain't never going to hit it. But if it's all the way mashed down, then it's going to hit. So, I mean, that makes sense. But my whole point is here, I thought it was something I'd done. I doubled back and back checked on it. But it's actually the machine shop put the piston on 180 degrees off. It should be, I should be able to pop this pin out and take them and twist them 180 degrees, put the pin back in, and I'll be fine. Every one of them, whatever they was matching up to, they did that. They did it wrong. And I don't understand how a professional player, I realize they make mistakes, but look, here's another reason why I can prove to you that that's what they done. Okay, Ford takes their marks on their factory pistons and puts the mark here on the piston. In relation, that's how you know you need to go to the front. This points to the front. This is the front of the motor, of course, where the water jacket is. So in other words, and also, that says number 1. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you look down here on the crank, you got 2 rods, 2 of these rods on the crank here. 2 of them fit on there. So you got 1 and 5. So if I put this one down in here, pointing this way, and number 1's here, okay, look how the factory did it. Do you see this groove? See how that groove's chamfered? And look at this groove. There's not one hardly. Here. So if you can get a view of that, and there's the one that's grooved. So, one here, the groove goes here, so I'll go right in here. I'm looking. My big groove is toward the journal. My non-groove goes to each other, right next to each other. This is going to show you the number 5 here. I did that number 5. I got it sitting up there. What do I do with it? Pause that for a minute. Okay, here I am. Okay, so there's, all right, I found number 5. So this is 1 and that's 5. 1 and 5 set on the same set on the same crank journal like this, just like this. Okay, so this is 5. It goes to here. Here's 1 that goes here, just like that. So if you look down here, that's a non-groover, that's a non-groover. They go just like this. The big groove is on the outside of each one of these. Okay? So the machine shop, if they got confused, they could have actually took a piston and laid it down here, because these look totally different. I mean, you wouldn't know what was going on here. But you do know this is number 1 and this is facing this way. So if you didn't know, you could have laid it down here and took this and looked at these rods, how they go on. The groove is here. The piston sets just like this. So you got to know how this piston sets. Okay? This piston has got to go over here on this side. So what would you do? You turn this piston this way, because it has to go on that. The large has to be on this side. So then you put this down and you take this rod that you got to fit in here and do it just like this rod. So this big groove has to be on this side. So what is it? The big groove's not on that side. It's on the small side. See, I'm not a machinist, and you can figure it. If you didn't know what you was doing, you'd be like, okay, how am I going to take this piston and this rod in a box that you buy separate and put it together and make it like this when it don't look nothing like this. So you're thinking, okay, so all I got to do is put this, just like how this piston will go, just like this in here. Take this piston right over here and set it down just like that. Look at this rod and know that this groove here goes here. So I take this piston in the box, pull it out, and take this part, the big side, and set it down just like that. Set it down, and I'll take this rod. Look at this rod. You got it in your hand and you're thinking, okay, the groove side's got to be on this side. So I'll take this rod and turn this rod right, put it in here and press it just like that when you got it. And they didn't do it. So I'm showing y'all that just in case if that ever happens to anybody. When you get something back, if I know what I know now, when I got it before I even left the machine shop, I would have inspected. I would have took me one down and took it down there and looked at it and made sure that these pistons were, you know, the rods and everything were just like I needed to, and I would have caught it. You know, I did a bad job about mashing them on. I done pulled out some of the metal, so they had a hard time getting them on, evidently. You know, if they stressed them out and busted them and cracked them all the way through at a high RPM, those would just bust apart. So, just showing y'all that. Me, like I said, it's my first time building it, and I didn't know if I had somebody had a lot of experience, they probably would have caught it before I even got way too far into the build. But now, the best thing about it is that I didn't run the motor at all. I didn't have it in there all together, like what in the world's going on? I caught it now, so now all I got to do is beat my pistons out, set them all down here, take them back to the local machine shop who did it, and either get my money back, take them somewhere else, or have them just turn around and do it, you know, have them put them in the right way. And they're probably not going to believe what they did at first, so I'll have to take a piston down there, because I had a little bit of hard time explaining to them, you know, what they done. But I can show you, like, this is number one, just like I did you, lay it down here. And I said, you know this part needs to go here, the top. And hopefully they'll understand. And they should.
They probably follow Gibby DIY, so they probably already know.
But anyway, I hope that helps y'all out. If anybody ever has that problem, you'll know what's going on. You got to pay attention to it, because you can put them in wrong. It's very easy to put them in wrong yourself, even though they're pressed right. You could turn them around. You got to pay attention to those grooves and you know, put them in against their self in the journals. And you got that part, but also you need people make mistakes, and hopefully that, you know, you can catch it without a lot of work being done. But look at some other videos, Gibby DIY. We'll put stuff on there at periods, at times, and as always, thank y'all and God bless.